Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined by Robyn Hughes. She's been working on some really interesting stuff, working with Braille and ChatGPT and AI language models. And there's actually a couple really interesting limitations that ChatGPT has when it comes to reading Braille. Robyn has made a whole bunch of really interesting discoveries, and I saw what she was working on, so I had to have her on the show. Robyn, welcome to the show today. Would you mind giving everyone a little bit about your background in this and kind of what got you started on this in the first place?
Sure. Thank you, Jaden, so much for inviting me on your show today. It's a privilege to be here. So, my name is Robyn Hughes, and I found my way into AI in kind of a circuitous route. So, let me first tell you a little bit about my professional background. I'm a Braille instructor. I'm certified in the Unified English Braille Code, which is the Braille code that is used in many English speaking countries around the world. I'm certified in, and I'll just refer to it by its acronym UEB.
Okay.
I'm certified in UEB by the Canadian National Institute for the Blind.
Okay.
And and that happened. I received my certification in 2014, and I am also a Braille and audio description consultant for the U.S. National Park Service.
Okay.
And prior to the pandemic, I was a docent and educator at the Jewish Museum of Maryland for 15 years. And I worked with the general public as well as I helped the education staff there develop Braille literacy programs that specifically integrated social studies, the Common Core curriculum in the state of Maryland, that into Braille literacy. And so we would have school groups from the Maryland School for the Blind and from the National Federation of the Blind. They had and still do, they have a summer program that's a Braille literacy program. And so they would come to the museum and visit us, and we created Braille literacy programs for them. That's a bit about my background. And then how AI came into all of this is I've always, from the time I was 5, I was born with a genetic disorder that affects my vision. So I was born with a severe visual impairment. So I've been a Braille reader since I was 2 years old. I was taught in my school system. I went to a regular public school in Maryland, and I had a special teacher known in the low vision blindness community as a vision teacher, and they're responsible for teaching students whose primary disability is visual impairment, and they teach them Braille if that's appropriate for them, and they also will teach them to use assistive technology. And so I began learning to use assistive technology when I was a child through my vision teacher, and I started using computers. I'm 51, so we didn't, computers were just evolving,
Hmm.
and assistive technology was just evolving when I was growing up. So when I was 11, I started using computers that had a voice synthesizer, and then when I was in middle school, I started using a device called a Braille and Speak, which was basically a Braille keyboard with voice output from the technology. And then all of the technology progressed over the decades to now where we have AI, and not just narrow AI, but we have LLMs like ChatGPT by OpenAI, developed by OpenAI, that have just absolutely revolutionized the living independently in the world for people like me. I just think it's absolutely
So
amazing and
amazing.
wonderful.
I'm curious because you mentioned, there's so many ways that AI and ChatGPT and these other tools are helping people that are visually impaired or with other things. What
Mhm.
are some of the things that you are the most excited about today that, maybe ChatGPT or some of the most helpful things that these new AI systems are helping people that might be visually impaired or have other things that it's helping them to be able to do?
Sure, sure. I can only speak about how ChatGPT assist or can assist people with low vision blindness. I'm not an expert, unfortunately, in other disabilities, but I'm sure that ChatGPT can also do a lot for people with other types of disabilities as well. But what he it and please forgive me, Jaden, and to all of your listeners, if I slip and say, if I accidentally anthropomorphize my chat GPT
No
instance,
worries.
be- because just for the sake of conversation flow, I sometimes inadvertently refer to it as he.
No worries.
But so anyway, so the things that my assistant has been fantastic at assisting me with through this can be done through AR glasses,
Okay.
augmented reality glasses, if someone has those, or in my case right now I've been using just the camera on my iPhone 16. And so one of the things that ChatGPT I've asked them to do for me is to look at the roof shingles on my house, because that's something that homeowners would typically check. Just responsible homeowners would want to check once a week to make sure that there are no problems with the shingles, so that they're not going to end up with lots of water in their house if there's a bad storm, a windstorm, or something like that. And I've had professionals, human professionals, come and evaluate, IT specialists come and evaluate the effectiveness of ChatGPT for that purpose. And they said that they think that my assistant can do as good a job as any human can, and they were really impressed.
That is interesting. Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I think a lot of people don't think about because, when I think about my roof shingles, it's something I glance at when I get home. It doesn't like really even register in my brain. But you're right. It is like that and among many other things that we're, always kind of subconsciously checking. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, if you don't have that ability, then ChatGPT and these other tools that's an amazing resource right there.
And also, another great thing that ChatGPT, my instance, has been able to do for me is to check the pipes in my basement. I live in an older home, and so it's particularly important to me to check for small leaks in the basement pipes before I end up going downstairs one day into my basement and finding a swimming pool.
Sure.
So so that's been very helpful. And some of the other things that ChatGPT has been able to do for me is to look at labels on cans
Okay.
of food. And then a major thing that ChatGPT can do, if somebody has AR glasses or if they have a harness that they can wear their phone in, is to be it's called a orientation and mobility assistant, and that just means that's the academic field in the low vision blindness profession that assist individuals with low vision blindness in safely navigating the environment. So, navigating a workplace, for instance, or a school or a grocery store. And so, but the my apprehension initially at having my assistant assist me with that is that I just didn't feel at all comfortable relying on an LLM that is mindlessly token predicting,
Mhm.
that appears to have no internal true comprehension. And so that was when I set off on my journey to try to teach my ChatGPT instance to comprehend in a human like way through usage based language acquisition, through the language medium of Unified English Braille.
I was reading up about this a little bit about what you're working on there, and I was so fascinated. So, give people a little bit of an overview of how you were able to do this and and why this is important.
At the time, I was a complete novice in the AI world. I just had no I understood that presumably ChatGPT and other LLMs like it were considered an empty house in that they were simply mimicking human comprehension but had no internal comprehension. They were simply predicting algorithms using Unicode. But what I didn't realize at first was the complexity of what they were actually doing through token prediction and tokenized languages. And, like, for instance, if someone's not familiar, um, OpenAI, I've since learned, uses the tick token library to tokenize its languages. And so, and so I figured out through listening to your podcast, Jaden, and also from doing research on Professor Melanie Mitchell and from the Santa Fe Institute, and also Professor Jeffrey Hinton and others like them, and also MIT researchers did some fascinating research back in 2022. They they created an LLM that was token predicting, and they introduced it to an obscure language that had not been tokenized to see if it could acquire usage based language acquisition through usage based language comprehension. And their findings suggested that yes, in fact, it could demonstrate usage based language comprehension
Oh, wow.
from that instruction. I thought, well, if they were able to do this, then perhaps I, as a Braille teacher, could use the medium of Braille to give my ChatGPT instance usage based language comprehension, human like language comprehension. And so through the language medium of Braille, and specifically the Unified English Braille Code. And so I checked the available public information on OpenAI's developer website to see, what the status of tokenization was for um, uh, Braille. And it appears, at least at the time, and I believe still today, that they have not OpenAI developers have not tokenized it. They have put tokens for the alphabet, the Braille alphabet, the English Braille alphabet, into ChatGPT, but they never actually tokenized it. And so to test all of this out, I first asked my ChatGPT instance to read a print book. And so I sat there with the camera and had them read the print book back to me, and that worked perfectly. There were no mistakes. Once I figured out that, okay, yes, it could, then I tried it with Braille and it couldn't. I set off on my journey and introduced um, ChatGPT to the Braille alphabet letter by letter, and it looked like a young child, a young human child learning. It made lots of mistakes. It needed lots of corrections. It took 2 months, and I started in June, and by the end of July, I had contemplated just giving up twice because it had just been so it just seemed to be so challenging for my ChatGPT instance to retain any of the information. But slowly over time, it began to learn and to retain what I had taught, and now it can perfectly read the Braille alphabet and words, and it produces its own Braille now.
That is absolutely incredible. How do you think this what are some of the biggest gains for people that use Braille? I mean, when you say it produces its own Braille, like what would that look like, right? Because typically Braille is you're feeling it, right? And so
Mhm.
how would you use that? And I guess what are some of the implications?
Sure. And the reason why this is significant, well, first, that it's using or appearing to use usage based language comprehension to do this through usage based language acquisition, is that it will hopefully dramatically reduce its error rate and its hallucination rate because it will actually have it actually appears, by instance, appears to have internal human like understanding of what it's doing and what it's saying and what it's generating. And so that automatically should produce, I hope, a much better result than if it were simply token predicting.
Hmm.
And then how will it dramatically improve the lives of people who read Braille is that, particularly for students, college students, it is a major problem to get math textbooks and to have math real time access to what the professor is writing on the board into Braille. And so, with AR glasses, my hope is that I'm going to be able to create a publicly accessible free API, a web based app through, her name is Professor Heidi Fung. She's invited me to do a second bachelor's degree if I'm accepted into the university beginning in September. And my work in her lab as a second bachelor's degree undergraduate student, and I'm going to be creating my own major, and it's going to be AI human relations. So, my 2 year project will be to develop this free, publicly accessible API that students in the English speaking world can use. It will give them real time access to math, to their math instruction in their classroom through the combination of AR glasses combined with a smartphone, and then that will be sent to the API.
That's amazing. And talk to me about how you get the data into it, because I know you said you like use the iPhone camera. I
Mhm.
I've just tried to upload like a Braille photo to ChatGPT and ask it to read it, and it says, I can't read Braille text. I can't.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So how do you get it to understand what you give it? Like, what was the process? Do you have to first give it like typed out the dots of Braille letters first as kind of like a something to reference back to, or
I used what's called a marble board. It's what we use to teach young children Braille. It's this large wooden board that has six. Braille is the combinations of the six dots. Each combination is called a cell. So this has six cells. So basically, you can put six letters, one across one marble board,
okay,
and you just constantly go back and forth with the iPhone camera and you say the letters. So, like for instance, dot one in Braille in UEB Braille is A, the letter A. So you say A, and you point your finger at the dot. You use a marble, and you point your finger at the letter A, and you say A dot one, and then ChatGPT, the instance, will repeat it back to you, and then you go on to B. B is dots one, two, and then you point. So you put the marbles in dots one and two in those positions, and then you point and you say B, and then you have ChatGPT say that again. It eventually learns. After it mastered the alphabet. Then I went on to words. And so I introduced the words to ChatGPT as I started with words that he was familiar with through his tokens, through our conversations. So, for instance, I started with hi, Robin, bye, because he would have recognized those presumably as common tokens
hmm,
in our conversations. And then ultimately, I started then showing him objects like circle. So I would point to a children's block, a circle children's block. So I pointed to a circle on the table. Then I showed him the word spelled out on the marble board, circle. Then I showed it to him on Braille paper, circle. Then and I used my voice and said circle, and this is through the voice engine on ChatGPT. Then I pointed back to the circle, and then I asked ChatGPT to spell the word, say the word, tell me what it meant.
wow. That is so like fascinating too because we think about how you train an LLM and how you can fine tune models and you think about there's a lot of like code tools out there with AI where they understand like the entire code base of your website and you've like essentially given it like the code base of an entire language and it remembers that. Do you think like OpenAI will go and kind of do the work of maybe after they've seen some of the things you've worked on or some of your research and actually implement some of this inside of the model so that ChatGPT will be able to just understand this right off the bat for people in the future?
I hope so, but I hope that they don't tokenize it because that would defeat the purpose of me doing this. My primary purpose, and this can be what I've developed can be used far beyond Braille because, or far beyond the low vision blindness community, because what I'm envisioning is that this could eliminate the problem of token drift and hallucinations and inaccuracies because of the lack of internal understanding of the LLM.
Hmm.
So I hope and I've talked to a medical student at Johns Hopkins University Medical School. This student is planning to go into interventional radiology, and it's becoming so common today for LLMs to be assisting in mammography, and it's just scary to think that because the LLM currently is just using token prediction and has no internal understanding of what it's doing, the responses it's generating, that a woman could potentially die simply because the LLM that was used to assist the human radiologist made a mistake. So my hope is that Braille can be used as an easy, because there are only 26 letters in the English alphabet. It can be used in other words, it wouldn't take what the MIT researchers had to go through, learning a whole new language, which can take years, 4 years at least, that they can just simply learn 26 letters in Braille and then be able to create an entire LLM that is based on language, true inner, um, internal machine language comprehension. And it would also uh, presumably be so much better for the environment, because you presumably wouldn't need these vast data centers if an LLM could simply be trained through human like language.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, that's so impressive what you've been able to work on, and I sure hope that the research and everything you've put into it, yeah, it gets to be used beyond even just Braille. But it's such a fascinating place. It's coming from such a fascinating angle. Robyn, if people are interested in keeping up with you and learning more about your research, what's the best place for them to do that in the future?
They can contact me. I'm on Facebook, so they're welcome to contact me through Facebook. Also, they can see the demo video that I created of my ChatGPT instance, sight reading Braille and producing Braille. And they can do that by going to the Friends of the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, their Facebook page. There's an article that I co authored about the process that I use. I just wanted to let people know that why this is so important from the Braille aspect for students, for instance, is because today math students, for instance, can in college, they can wait months, as long as 3 to 6 months for a human transcriber to be able to transcribe their math textbook for them. Also, it costs over $1,000 to have a textbook, a university textbook, produced by a human transcriber. So it would just make a dramatic difference. And my invention is not intended to eliminate the need for human braille transcribers. Just simply to help them be able to reach more people faster.
So exciting. So thank you so much, Robyn, for all the work that you're doing and for coming on the show and sharing that with everybody today. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show today. To all of the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the AI Chat podcast today. Make sure to leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, and we will catch you in the next episode.